Hello, everyone. Welcome to Intrigue the podcast, where we interview people from all industries. Today, I'm joined by my colleague, Tatyana Graesser. Hello.
Hello. Happy to be here.
Hello. How are you doing?
I'm doing lovely. How are you?
I'm good. Well, let's get going. Let's start off this video talking about your career. And what a better place to start than your childhood. So
right at the beginning.
So tell me, where did you grow up? You said you were in Massachusetts, right?
I was in Massachusetts for a bit. So I was born in New York, moved to Framingham, Massachusetts for a little bit of my childhood, but mainly grew up in Miami, South Florida area. Before
I want to talk about your education journey, because you told me the education in Framingham and in Miami was very different, right?
Very different.
How did you adjust? Tell me all about it.
Very different. So at least for me, when I was in Massachusetts, I started off in a Montessori school for the first couple years until eventually my parents were like, okay, I think she's got a good foundation and this is not cheap. So then I went to public school in Massachusetts. But even Massachusetts public school, the vocabulary that I got in third grade of Massachusetts public school was 10 times harder than what I got in fourth grade in Florida public school, which was a fun adjustment for me, especially at the beginning. Oh, an example. This is my favorite. I had civilization as a word in third grade and gray, like the color, as a word in fourth grade, which is something that I was certain we all learned colors in kindergarten. So it was very shocking to me getting that as a word, to be honest. And I think it was shocking to my mom. That was the first class I was in fourth grade. And then after that, I got moved into the quote unquote gifted program, which was, a bit more challenging, but it still wasn't very.
So your mom pushed you, your mom complained to the teachers, basically.
Yeah, my mom definitely, she was like, this is not working. But it was also my teacher herself, my teacher, I forget her name. It started with an F, but she was honestly a really great teacher, but at some point she knew, she was like, this is not working for her. And she went to administration, was like, no, we should probably move her up. I remember my last week, she straight up told me, she was like, you need to stop answering questions because I'm going to get too used to it. And people aren't talking anymore because you answer all the questions. And when you're gone, it's going to be mad quiet. So crickets. So that's what I moved to, quote unquote, gifted, I suppose. And then I was doing that for elementary school.
But so thanks to your mom and your teacher then.
Yeah, thankfully they were looking out for me, and they made sure I was a little bit challenged in school and wasn't slacking. Which was great.
Can you tell us what your parents did for a living?
Yeah, so my mom's a professor at the University of Miami. She's a psychologist, but she works at the School of Education. And my mom has been in academia pretty much my whole life. Worked at Boston College and then University of Miami. But she also does just a lot of nonprofit work. She started a foundation, IIT Community Trust, which is a nonprofit organization funding organizations in Haiti, along with a bunch of other mental health organizations working in Haiti and the Haitian community. So she does a whole lot. And then my dad is a mechanical engineer. So he's been, he got his degree from New Jersey Institute of Technology, and he's been working his job my whole life. I've never seen him do anything else. So.
Wow. So your mom's from Haiti, your dad's German, correct?
Yeah, the background's German, but it's very American. We're really just from New Jersey. Definitely more New Jersey in us culturally than Germany.
I see. And you have one younger sister.
Yes, just my little sister, Alexis. Love her.
Cool. And did your parents influence you to pursue a certain career path? Did they push you into anything?
Well, my mom definitely pushed me to where I am now. But in general, from both of them, there was always there was never even a debate or a conversation about whether or not I go to college or not. It was a given. I knew, no one had to tell me, but I always knew, like, you're going to go to college and you're going to get a job after college. It was never like any alternative career paths, like technical school or apprenticeships or anything like that was never in the cards.
Why is that? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't know. I think it was probably just important to both of my parents, especially my mom as a professor. She was a first generation college student. So it was something that was important to her. My dad worked very hard in college. I think my dad took night classes for like 10 years to get his degree, like taking 2 classes a semester for like 10 years to finally get his degree. So I think it was just something that was important to them, getting a college degree. I honestly don't know if I had known if there were other options. I think if I had said like, hey, I want to do something else, they probably would have been okay. But they weren't even on my radar, if that makes sense. Like, it wasn't even something that I even knew about, let alone could consider. So that was definitely something that I feel like they gave me.
I see. And then before we go into like your high school and college career, I want to talk about like your experience with your mom, because you probably went to a lot of academic conferences, right? Like,
oh, yeah.
How was that?
I mean, it's lots of fun. I mean, when you're a kid and you get to go to all these different conferences and go to places and stuff, like, it's always fun as a kid. And I'm a nerd and I like boring stuff. So I loved sitting at like psychology conventions and being like, oh, what did we learn today? Like, what are the slides about? What are we talking about? So I always found it really exciting and interesting. It did definitely, like, over time, I learned that academia was not for me. Like, I knew I wasn't going to, a lot of my family's in academia, my mom, my aunt, a couple people on my dad's side as well. A lot of my family's in academia. And I think definitely being around that made me know it wasn't the environment for me.
What about academia is not for you?
There's a lot of networking and connections and politics in both a good and negative way. Like, you need to be able to talk to people and have connections with people and do research and write books and things of that nature that I knew I just wouldn't enjoy or be good at. So that honestly helped. Like, being in that environment made me realize, like, yeah, y'all have fun with that one, but it's just not for me.
So what did you enjoy in like your childhood and early teens?
Childhood and early teens. Well, in childhood, I did a lot of music. Like, my parents put me in keyboard in middle school. I started playing the cello, and I've played cello ever since. I went to a high school for performing arts. So a lot of cello. My parents weren't super technological, if that makes sense. Like, even though my dad's a mechanical engineer, they weren't like super tech savvy and were a little tech averse, if that makes sense. So it wasn't like I was introduced to tech at a young age and really liked it. Like, when I was in middle school, I still was like, hey, can I use the computer? And they'd be like, you can use cool math games for 30 minutes. And that's what I would do. But I did really enjoy whenever I got to visit like friends, playing video games, and messing around with like a Nintendo DS and all that type of stuff. That I always really enjoyed. Partly because I enjoy it, but also because it was fresh and new. It's something I didn't get to do at home.
Nice.
So I think that's something I really enjoyed. And then starting around in high school, I was like a 14-year-old in 2014. So I had a Tumblr phase like everybody else. And I started to really enjoy like editing my own page. It's how I really got introduced to like HTML and CSS and starting on JavaScript, because I wanted to make my page this color, or I wanted to make my page have this feature or look like this or have this pop up. And so I started kind of experimenting with messing around with my own page and creating themes for other people. And that's something that I really enjoyed and I had a lot of fun with in my free time, just messing around with the different features there. And it's what got me here. It's how my mom influenced me. Because from that and me showing her and being like, look, Mom, look at the thing I made. Aren't you proud of me? She she was like, "Oh, I heard of Girls Who Code today, so you're going to sign up for it because I think you
today, like that day."
That day, yeah. The application was due the day she told me about it. So we sat down and I wrote some essays, and she read them and edited them and all that, and submitted the application. And I got into Girls Who Code, so I did Girls Who Code in high school, and that was definitely a big part of me getting onto the kind of tech software career path that I ended up on. Was that?
So thank you, Tatyana's mom. Woohoo!
Thank you, Mom.
We love supportive moms.
We love it. Thank you, Mom.
Dang. So she helped you get into gifted class and then get you into Girls Who Code.
Yeah, my mom, you can tell she's School of Education. She takes it very seriously. She takes it very, very seriously. And she knew what she was doing. She had a plan and she executed
it to perfection.
Beautifully.
Awesome. And before we talk about Girls Who Code, I want to dig a little bit into your cello background. So you started playing in middle school, correct?
Yeah, I started playing in middle school. I started playing because my best friend joined orchestra in 6th grade, and she really enjoyed it. And I was like, I just want to do what my friend's doing. So I joined orchestra in 7th grade, I think, is when I joined. And I loved it. I mean, it was literally, our class was in one of those public school trailers. It was just a trailer, a bunch of instruments. I ended up choosing the cello because there just wasn't enough chairs. So if you wanted to sit, like, guaranteed, you had to play the cello. So that's why I chose the cello. Also because my friend played it. So I was like, oh, we can sit next to each other. This is so fun.
So for practical reasons. For practical reasons.
And I loved it immediately. And I was pretty decent at it. So my orchestra director, Mr. Jesus, she was really good about like encouraging me and saying like, you should do private lessons and you can be good at this. Like if you take this seriously, you could be pretty good. And with her, we were able to like do different chamber events and go and play for weddings and go and play for like the Pinecrest Gardens in Florida. So all of that was really fun. And it was a nice community and it was something I really enjoyed. And still do to this day.
Was your teacher like strict or was she friendly? Like how was she with?
She was really friendly. I mean, she was really, really friendly. She was the type, when she got mad. But beyond that, she was always really sweet. Never too critical, especially for us. Like we were just like a bunch of beginners in middle school. So she was really good at setting that foundation of like knowing what to do and knowing where to put your hands and knowing all that stuff. And being encouraging without being mean or too forceful or too aggressive. Just like very, very friendly and encouraging, which was awesome. She was great.
Yeah, that's a hard balance to keep, I think.
Hard balance.
Very hard. Especially with middle schoolers, right?
Nightmare. Just nightmare years. So honestly, she's a saint. I don't know how she did it.
And then you moved to a performing arts high school. Like how did that happen? What was going through your like thought process?
Well, I went to Coral Reef High School, which is a magnet school in South Florida. And it's one of the better schools in the South Florida area. So it's already a school that my mom like had her eye on like early. And it's one of the school where it is a public school technically, but you do have to apply to get in.
Oh, you have to audition?
Yeah, you have to apply or audition. So I was in performing arts, so I auditioned for it. The other magnets, like the legal magnet or medicine or engineering, those, they just apply and it's literally a lottery. Like they just pick names out of a hat. And if you get in, you get in.
That's strange.
Yeah, because a lot of people apply. So they have like a base. If it's still the same, I don't know. It might have changed. But at least at the time, they had like a base kind of GPA, I think, for all of these different magnets. And then after that, it was a lottery. Versus visual and performing arts, all of those were auditions. So I honestly did performing arts. One, because I was already in it. I already enjoyed it. And two, because it felt like at least I could control whether or not I got in. Like it wasn't just, I hope they pick my name out of a hat. Like if I play well, they'll let me in. And I was lucky to kind of already know the director at the time, Mr. Hudson. His wife was the music teacher at my elementary school. So I kind of knew who he was already. I felt like he was a good teacher. I felt like it was a good school. And I appreciated at the very least being able to do my own thing and not just like hope that the numbers fell the right way for me. I hated auditioning. I still do. It's terrifying, but I prefer it to just like rolling some dice. So
were you nervous during?
Oh my God. Terrified.
How did you deal with it?
Horrendously terrified. I just kind of powered through. I was so nervous. Honestly, I got lucky in that Mr. Hudson was the one who did the audition, and he was very nice in the auditions, and he wasn't, because sometimes you go to an audition and you can feel like daggers like staring at you. It's really kind of traumatizing. He was very nice about it. And luckily my cello teacher, my private teacher, Miss Blafian, she had prepared me very well. Like I knew what I was playing. I knew how I wanted to play it. I was still very stressed. I remember in line waiting to play, like hearing people practice. I was like, oh, I don't know. But I did it. I did good enough. I got in.
You got in. Yay. Congrats.
I got in, which is great. Honestly, one thing that I think helped with that process was before you played, there was a written test, like a multiple choice.
Wait, music?
Like basic music theory, like what is this time signature? What is this key? And I know how multiple choice tests work. Like that was my first ever real audition. I had never really auditioned for anything in that way before. So a lot of it was unknown to me, but I have done a Scantron. I know how Scantrons work. So it was kind of grounding to just fill in some bubbles and say, that's 4/4 and that's C major, and turn it in. And it kind of got me in like the testing zone where my head is very clear.
Was that before I think helped you a lot. Played for the judges?
Yeah. As before I played. So I got in like testing head instead of like audition head, which was good.
What did you play? Do you remember?
Oh my God. It was from Suzuki Book 3. Book for Cello Book 3. I don't remember if it was Gavotte. I think it was Gavotte and C. You had to play two. You had to play something like slow and melodic, and you had to play something a bit more upbeat. And I think I did two things from Suzuki Book 3. And I don't remember that at all.
I went through violin and I remember Suzuki very well.
Oh, the Suzuki books, God. Those are, if you haven't worked with a Suzuki book, you haven't learned. Like, I've never met someone who like plays an instrument who didn't start out with like Suzuki Book 2, Suzuki Book 3, and work their way through them. So honestly, bless Suzuki Book 3. It got me into school. So,
nice. So you got in. Like, what were you feeling at the time as a freshman in Coral Reef?
Well, as a freshman, I was very nervous because pretty much no one that I knew went to Coral Reef. So none of my friends from middle school went to my high school. So that was very stressful. I'd already done a lot of moving schools. Like I went to like 3 separate elementary schools and then my one middle school. So it kind of sucked because in middle school, I had gotten to a point where I felt secure. Like I knew people, I had friends and stuff like that. So redoing it in 9th grade was rough already to begin with. Like I was very nervous about it. I've never been a good friend maker or like able to just go around and talk to people and say hi and all that type of stuff. So that was very stressful. And then I remember when we did auditions for seating and just hearing people play this was in concert orchestra, so the lowest level orchestra. And I felt terrible. Like, I would see people playing, I was like, I suck. I'm actually so bad at this. I don't know how they let me into this orchestra. Like, this is not good. This is horrendous. And I'm not sure if I got in my head or if I actually was that bad, because I did. I was the last chair. I was the last seat in concert orchestra for my first semester.
Wait, can you explain what last seat means?
So basically, when you sit in an orchestra, you have like first chair, second chair, third, fourth, and you kind of go back like this. And it's literally in order of how good you are.
Oh my God.
So you do your like seating audition at the beginning of the semester. We did it twice a year. So beginning of the year and then after winter break. And so at that first one, I was really stressed. I wasn't feeling good. It was honestly, the repertoire was way harder than anything I had ever done in middle school. I think my first year we did Polovetian dances, number 17 and something else. Beautiful songs, but way harder than anything I had ever touched. It was that, and then New World Symphony, I think the fourth movement.
Freshman year?
Freshman year.
Oh, wow.
And because everyone like plays the same thing. And so that was, I bombed, like I was not good. And so getting last chair, I already wasn't feeling good. And then getting last chair, I was like, oh, I'm really not good. Oh. Like it just kind of confirmed what I was worried about being in last chair, which was very stressful and wasn't very fun.
How did you deal with that?
Badly. I dealt with it pretty badly. I'd say my first year of high school was probably a very, very low point, at a very like depressed mindset, very depressive episodes. I wasn't doing very well at all. I would say my second half of freshman year, as I got to know people, as I started to make good friends, as I got into therapy, I got a lot better and I started feeling a lot more secure in the orchestra. Because at the beginning, like a lot of these people also knew each other. They had gone to the same middle school and the same orchestra. So I felt very, very much like an outsider. So now I kind of knew who people were. I could talk to people. We luckily, we played the same thing. So I was able to just practice it and get better at it. I had a better sense of what we were doing in the orchestra. So I knew what the expectations were so I could meet them, because before I didn't even know what the expectations were. And then they were just so much higher than anything I could envision that it scared me. Now I knew what they were. So I could try and get there. And so I'd say my second semester really helped me turn things around. I think I got to 4th or 5th chair out of 8. So I moved up a good amount.
Within how much? Like how many months?
There was 8 of us our first year. And I think I moved up to 4th or 5th, if I remember correctly, from 8th. So I did a big jump, which made me feel really good about myself.
Yay.
That helped a lot, to be honest. That really, really helped. And helped me build my confidence. Another thing that I think helped me build confidence overall in general was actually my second year, because the way the orchestra worked is we had concert orchestra, symphony orchestra, and then chamber orchestra. So concert and chamber were the 2 strings only orchestras. And as a freshman, you always started in concert. If you were really good, you could go straight to chamber.
Chamber is smaller, correct? Chamber
is smaller, and it was the people who were very good. So if you're really good, you could go straight to chamber your second year. But everyone from 2nd to 4th year all plays in symphony orchestra, which is the whole band, us and the band, where we play the big bombastic symphony pieces. So in my second year, everyone who was a lot better than me went to chamber, and I got to still be in concert, which helped boost my confidence, because then I was like the one left who was still good in concert. Because almost everyone who was as a higher level than me went to chamber. So I was able to take more of a leadership role in the concert orchestra. I think I was second chair, or I don't think I ever got first chair. I think I was second chair at that time. And being able to like help the first years coming in, like help them with their auditions, run sectionals, things like that, helped me build my confidence and be like, okay, I know what I'm doing. Like, I know how to play the cello. I can, I can teach people things, and I have valuable insight. Like, I'm not bad at this.
Mm-hmm.
And so that helped a lot, honestly, like having that period where, I was able to like help people who were in my spot, who were like, oh my God, I suck, I'm last chair. Like being able to go back and help people with that was really, really confidence boosting. I felt a lot better about myself, and how well I played after my second year.
Mm-hmm. And
awesome.
It probably built like your empathy skills, right? Because, you know, like they were at your spot.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, I was all the way back there. Like, it's okay. Mm-hmm. I was way, way, way back there. So it helped a lot.
Right. I want to talk about your teaching career, but before that, let's go back to Girls Who Code, because this is like pretty much how your tech career started, right? So you were what, 14, right?
I think I was 15 when I did Girls Who Code.
And can you tell us what Girls Who Code is and what you did there? What did you learn?
Yeah, so Girls Who Code, I did the summer immersion program. I think 2014, 2015. And that is a like 7-week long intensive coding program. So you're just there. It's a bunch of girls. It was, I think, only 20 of us or so in a classroom. And we started off in Scratch, MIT Scratch, for like 2 weeks, just learning those basics. Then I think we did Python for a week, did web stuff for like a week. So learning HTML, CSS, JavaScript for, I believe, another 2 weeks. And then after that, we did like a final project. And that was the last 2 weeks, just working on that final project. And then doing a presentation at the end. So it was a good, like, overall like introduction to a lot of different like computer science-y, tech in general, coding concepts, which was really fun. There was also like no pressure, so it felt like you were just like learning to have fun. Like no one's gonna fail you, no one's gonna like no one's gonna yell at you,
judge
like,
you. Right?
We're just here to have fun, and it was very much a beginner's class. Like it's made for people who have never seen a code in their life. And that was very good, starting up from like bare minimum basics, especially with something like Scratch, which was very good and visual and like easy to pick up very quickly. It was a very good introduction.
So what I'm gathering is it's very different. Like the environment was very different from Coral Reef, where you felt a lot of imposter syndrome, but at Girls Who Code, you felt more confident coming in.
Yes, I felt a lot more confident in Girls Who Code. I mean, honestly, I give a lot of credit to my teacher and my TAs from Girls Who Code. My teacher, JD, he was a king.
JD.
And he was just very, very good about keeping everyone engaged and keeping the energy up, and being very non-judgmental. And they made a really, really good environment, which was something I had never really been in before. Like, it was the first time I think I had been in a room of like 20 people, especially 20 people, like all girls, just 20 girls in a room, where I knew everybody. Like, I knew everybody's name. I could talk to anybody if I needed to. Like, obviously I had people I was closer with or more friendly with or more friends with, but there was no one who was like a stranger to me or someone who I couldn't talk to at all in the whole class. Honestly, I think a good part of it was he just forced everyone to sit with someone different at lunch.
Oh, okay.
Like, he would be like, all right, we're doing lunch. This time it's you. And this time it's you. And so we were constantly talking to each other and talking to different people, and you can just like stick with your one group the whole time.
So no cliques, really fun. No peer group.
No, yeah, you couldn't really click it up in that way. We also played, I think Spit, like the card game Spit. There was some card game we played. I don't remember if it was Spit. And we had a league, like it was on the board whenever we took breaks, you'd have a league. If you won your group, you'd move up to like the next tier. S tier had the beautiful chairs in the lounge. F tier sat on the floor. But you were constantly like, if you won, you moved up. If you lost, you moved down. So you were constantly in a different group. Especially because he and the TAs would just kick everyone out of S tier immediately. So you never languished in S tier very long if you were up there. So that also helped with like constantly talking to everybody and knowing who everyone was.
Oh, wow.
So they did a really good job of like really fostering a community there, which was incredible. It was never had anything like it in a classroom before or since. So really, really impressive stuff.
I'm learning a lot. Yeah.
Like really impressive. And so it made it so that not only did I enjoy coding and I enjoyed the work that we did and I felt like I was good at it and I felt like it was something I could do. But it also made me feel like, oh, like there could be community in that I would belong to. Yes. There would be community in that I could be a part of. And it got me before you could get all of the messaging about like what tech is and who's in tech and like what the makeup of like a tech bro is or a tech person is. It got me before that could get me.
I understand.
So that was also really, really good and really impactful. So
your first exposure to tech was very supportive.
Yeah, was very supportive and very wholesome and very like empowering, which was a good foundation, I think, for like actually going into tech, which cannot be that sometimes.
We'll
so
get there later.
That's there. It's good to know that that's there. Yeah.
So after, or I don't know, you also did some teaching jobs, right, over the summer.
Yes.
Can you talk
Lots
about
of teaching
that?
jobs. I did a lot of summer camp teaching. Summer camps were my first and like only summer job.
This was high school, right?
In high school, also in middle school. To be honest, I started off. I went to this camp. It was called Yes Camp, Youth Empowerment Summer Camp in Florida. And I went to it as a kid, I think for like 2 years or so. The oldest age was 13. And I think like the second I turned 13, my mom was like, well, you're not hanging around my house all summer. So you can just like be her assistant. So I was a volunteer when I was 13 because you're not legally allowed to work. So I just followed around, like I think it was Muti Emily and Ms. Nelson and like just help them out with like paperwork and stuff like that. I think at that point, I was still in Taekwondo. So I like taught Taekwondo to the boys the 1 year they had boys in this camp. They never did it again.
I wonder why.
It was a girls only summer camp and they switched it up for 1 year and then dropped it. So, but then after that, I actually became like a junior camp counselor. And especially after I did Girls Who Code, they were like, hey, like, we want to teach things to these students. They're not just like playing around, having a fun time. We try to teach them things and give them a background. So they're like, do you want to teach like coding stuff? And I was like, yeah, I'd love to. It'd be lots of fun. So what they did is they had like tablets. They just had like 7 Samsung tablets for like a class of 20. And I found like the code.org curriculum that they have. Like I think they have a couple 2-week curriculums, 6-week curriculums, all that type of stuff. And I went through those curriculums with them, which was fun because you had to improvise. It wasn't like everyone had their own tablet. So we had to do buddy systems and pair people up and have people work together and trying to like introduce paired programming to 8-year-olds, which was really fun and challenging.
Wow.
And also doing like their non-tech coding exercises, like creating the instructions to build a paper airplane. Like you write down the instructions, you give it to someone else and see what they do with it. Yeah. The same way that you write down code and like, let's see what the computer's going to do with it because they're going to take you literally. So yeah, that idea of like step by step and thinking programmatically. And so even if like most of these kids are not going to become software engineers, but like I think the problem solving and thinking programmatically and like step by step is a good thing to have, a good skill to have.
Regardless of where you go in life.
Wherever you end up. And so that was really really fun. And a lot of the girls really enjoyed it, which was also like, it was really great to see them have a good time and have fun. Especially with something that most of them had never had any experience with coding in general. Some of these girls were like, oh, is that a tablet? Like, I've never seen one of those. So it was really good to be able to kind of share that with them, and do that work for those 2 years.
So you developed your own curriculum. Well, you kind of got inspired curriculum more, but you developed it yourself. That was really
I did. I had to do a lot of tweaking to it to make it work. Wow, which was really fun.
On your
and it gave me a good baseline. Right? Yeah, that was just me. I was like 14.
Wow,
who let me come up with curriculum? But they did.
Impressive.
I hope I left a good impression on them, and they learned a lot and at least had fun. It's a summer camp, like have fun and maybe learn something while you're at it. And it gave me a good foundation because later on in high school, I helped run the Girls Who Code like club in high school, where we also did some lessons and things of that nature. So it gave me a good foundation for writing down a lesson plan, which is something that like no one's teaching you that in base school. Like you got to go to college for someone to teach you how to write a lesson plan,
or even masters, right? Yeah,
but yeah, you have to go to a specialized school to learn how to write a lesson plan. Yeah. So it's good because it gave me that background to be like, okay, here's the things we want to teach. Here's what we want to go over today. And
wow,
that's a good foundation.
What did you like about working with like 8 to 13-year-olds in particular?
Oh, I love kids. So I always worked with the 8 to 10-year-olds. They were always my group.
8 to 10.
I think it's honestly because I started as a camp counselor so young. I was like 15 or so. So when you're 15, they're not going to put you with the 13-year-olds because they're not respecting you. Yeah. And they're not going to put you with the 5-year-olds because you don't actually know what you're doing. So you can't be with the 5-year-olds. So 8 to 10 is like, I think the perfect age also because kids have the most messed up sense of age in the world. Like I'd be 15 and I'd be like, we thought you were 32. What? So so it actually works because they just have no sense of age at all.
My God.
But I loved working with 8 to 10-year-olds. That age group is my favorite. I am biased. I work with them the most, but they're my favorite. There's a level of like pure honesty. If you want a real opinion, go talk to a kid. Like if you want an actual real opinion on something, unfettered, no shame, they'll tell you what they think. You go to a kid and they will tell you. And they also just have really interesting stuff to say. Like they had good, interesting perspectives. They all came from different places. So you can have a really good conversation with someone who's like 8 years old. Like, yo, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And it was really fun to work with them and as like people instead of like little children that you're herding around. Like if a kid says to you, like, I don't like this dance, I don't want to do it. Being like, why? Like, why don't you like this dance? As opposed to like, no, sorry, we said so. You got to go do the dance. Because if you ask a kid, like, why do you not like the dance? They probably have a good reason. Like they probably have a good reason. And then you probably have a good reason for why they should probably do it anyways. And you could have like a good conversation about it, which is always fun.
So treating them like adults.
Yeah, not like adults, but I mean, just like people,
human beings. Right?
Yeah, people with like reasoning and, you know, a sense of self, who have opinions and like feelings that matter. Is honestly, I don't know. I feel like it's kind of rare, at least for me as a kid. Like it was like, just do what I told you to do because I'm an adult. But for me, I was 15, so I'm not an adult. Like, why am I telling you what to do? I'm a child. So I get that as a sense of like, we're just going to need to have some mutual respect for each other because I can't give you any concrete reason why you should just respect me as an elder. I'm a 15-year-old who's here because my mom told me I can't stay home over the summer.
And was it a paid job as well?
Yeah, it was a paid job. Once I was old enough to get paid.
Oh,
it was a paid job. And it was I don't remember. I think it was like $9 an hour when I
Not
started,
bad.
9, 8. Yeah, but you had to, when I started it, as a high schooler, you only got paid half time. So I got paid for half of my work, and then the other half of my work were community service hours that I could log on my like high school community service ledger, where you needed like 100 hours to graduate, which I blew past.
Oh yeah,
just in high school. And I was like, this is, y'all are crazy if you can't do like 100 hours. So it was half paid at the beginning. Once I got out of high school, they had to pay me the whole time. But when I was in high school, it was half paid.
Awesome. So you have your cello, you have your teaching career, and now thinking about college. What was in your mind?
What was in my mind? Well, I was stressed. Applying for colleges was really, really stressful. I remember having like all the spreadsheets and coming up with all the things that like I wanted, because at least for me, like looking back, now I know what I would value in a college. Like if I was to go out and get a master's degree right now, I kind of know what I would want academically. When I went to applying at colleges, I was like 16, maybe 15 when I started thinking about it. 16 when I was really applying. So I didn't know what I wanted. Like I didn't know what my ideal class to professor ratio was. I didn't know what type of culture I wanted. I didn't know X, Y, and Z. For me, I honestly had two main things on my list, which were my mom would be happy with it. And I really wanted to be in New York. I wanted to be in New York City right? So bad. I really wanted to be in New York City. I had other ones on my list to make my mom happy. My mom had a list of like 30 colleges that I was able to whittle down to, I think, like 17 that I applied for. But I knew that I wanted to be in New York City, like really badly. My family is from kind of New York City, Brooklyn area. Been there often as a kid. Went on a couple field trips like in school and stuff like that. Love New York City to death. And I knew that's where I wanted to be. Okay. So those were my two big ones.
So NYU Columbia was probably on that list.
NYU Columbia, Fordham. I thought Fordham, what else? I forget what other, I applied to a lot of colleges. I honestly could not list all the ones I applied for. But those are the ones where I knew I really wanted to get in, like, really badly.
And then how did you select your colleges? Because you got into Cornell as well, right?
Yeah, so I got into Cornell and NYU, and those were my top two. My other top three was University of Miami, because I got in, and my mom is a professor there. So it would have been the financially sound decision for me to make, because it would have been free. But instead I had dreams and passions and wanted to go away from home. So it was really Cornell or NYU. And those were the two where I knew that I could convince my mom to let me go and not stay in Miami, close to family, close to home, literally at the same campus as her. And not costing an arm and a leg. But those two I knew I could convince her to go.
Is it because of the rankings?
Because of the rankings, they're good schools. They are in New York. Like a lot of my family is in New York, so she would feel a lot better about me going to New York as opposed to going like out west or going to like Chicago or going somewhere else, because we have a support system there and people can check up on me there. And she knew the two colleges very well. And she knew that they were good schools. So I got to visit Cornell as part of their like diversity program. They flew me out so I could go visit.
Oh, for free.
Yeah, for free. It was really fun. It was like a spring break event.
Awesome.
And that was fun. I mean, and it helped me kind of realize that I didn't prefer it.
Why is that?
To NYU, it was Ithaca's not the most exciting of places. I remember coming from the airport and like driving in the van where they just picked up all of our diversity folks and shipped us to Cornell. And I was like, that's a lot of cows. Like that's a lot of cows.
So you
and
don't
I'm
like
not,
the village vibe.
I'm not a rural gal in terms of living. You know, I hate driving and I'm not very good at it. So being anywhere where I would need to have a car already, I didn't love. I felt very kind of trapped on the campus. Like you can't go anywhere. You're staying on the Cornell campus. If that, maybe you can visit somewhere in Ithaca, but Ithaca is a college town. So you're still practically on a college campus, or you could go frolic with the cows. Like those were your two options. So I really enjoyed my time there. Like I know if I had gone to Cornell, I would have been fine. I would have been happy. I would have been okay. But I knew I liked the city more. I knew I liked the city a lot more. And luckily the finances were kind of even. Like neither of them were giving me a lot more than the other financially. So it was pretty easy for me to pick NYU after that.
Did your mom have a hard time reconciling that you chose NYU over Cornell? Like, what was that like?
No, I think she knew. I think she knew. I think the second I was like, yeah, I'm going to apply to Fordham, she was like, oh, she's just trying to get to New York City. Like, I think she knew. I think she knew. So it wasn't a big shock to her. When I said I think I want to go to NYU.
Cool.
And luckily it's also a very good school. So it wouldn't have thrown her off the same way if I was like, I want to go to CUNY, in which case she might have cried.
Oh.
So it was easy for me to do.
Awesome. So you graduated high school, went to NYU freshman year. How did you feel? How was the transition? This was engineering, right? You chose computer science?
This was engineering. So the first thing is I got into the School of Engineering, which to me was shocking.
Why? Tell us.
I had been a performing arts student my whole life. The last science class I took was in sophomore year of high school. The most math I took was Calc AB my senior year. So they didn't even know if I had passed that class when they let me in. I had done... The way my school worked in high school, it was like a block schedule. You had 3 classes a day. Every day I had orchestra. So 33% of my education was just me playing the cello the whole time. So I can't say I had like the biggest STEM background in that way. And even though, like, for example, I said I did STEM teaching, I also did violin and cello teaching in Haiti. So it's not like I also had like specifically STEM teaching experience. I also had performing arts teaching experience.
Okay.
And so nothing I think about my background screamed like a solid engineering student. And it was honestly something I debated when I applied, because NYU does have 2 computer science majors. They have one in the School of Engineering, one of the College of Arts and Sciences. And I ended up, I chose to apply for School of Engineering just because I thought the curriculum made more sense for what I wanted to do. And honestly, for that school, you didn't have to take a language and I didn't want to. And you also got a bachelor's of science from the engineering school, and you would get a bachelor's of arts in the College of Arts and Sciences. And I just thought that sounded better. I don't know. I was 17. Okay. So I thought it sounded better. And the School of Engineering was in Brooklyn, and I love Brooklyn. My family's from Brooklyn. So it was like a big, like, woo, Brooklyn thing. But I was shocked. I was shocked that I got into an engineering school, because I wouldn't have admitted me. I've been like, she doesn't even know science.
So this is like imposter syndrome part 2.
Part 2, definitely part 2. And it was weird because for me, actually, like, at least socially transitioning was very easy for me, which was something I didn't expect. But I kind of told myself coming out of high school, going to NYU, I knew no one was going to specifically the School of Engineering. a couple people were doing like Tisch School of the Art stuff, but you don't see them because they're all the way in Manhattan as an engineering student. So I kind of went into college being like, I'm just going to emulate what I want to be in life.
Which is what did you want?
Which was a lot more, more outgoing, more talkative, like speaking my mind more, being louder in general. I always had this weird sense of being really, really loud with anyone who knew me and being aggressively quiet with anyone I didn't. Like people could not hear me speak. I was very quiet, very soft spoken in high school and in middle school. And I was never very good at like just approaching people and being like, do you want to be my friend? Like, do you want to talk? Like, do you want to be my friend? And so I kind of told myself, I'm just gonna act like how I want to be. And no one's going to know that's not what I'm like. Because if I started doing that in high school, everyone would be like, what is wrong with her? Why is she suddenly talking and yelling all the time? But like, no one in college would have any basis for who I am as a person. So whatever they get is just what they're going to think I am. So I'm just going to be what I want to be. And see how it goes. And see how it goes. And that honestly worked very well. Very fake it till you make it. Or fake it till you become it. And that worked very well for me. I never really got super homesick or anything like that. So that was also great. I was very lucky to become really good friends with my suite mates that I was because they just put you with people freshman year in a dorm. So I became very good friends with them very quickly. So I had a support system very quickly. And I was able to kind of get myself socially where I wanted to be very, very quickly. Academically, no. Academically was a flop. I took Calculus 2 my first semester. I had it as like an 8 a.m. Monday class. Ooh. And no one had told me that Calc BC is actually the second half of Calc 1. So it meant that I just didn't know half of calculus going into Calc 2.
Oh, no.
And I was horrendous at that class. I was really bad at it. I also just struggled in general going to it. At that time, one of my friends got me a job working at the like eating market hall and at the winter festival here at Bryant Park, just like working at a kebab stand. So I would often work very, very late nights. Like I'd work from 6 to midnight or 5 to midnight or noon to midnight on the weekends. So doing like a noon to midnight shift and then coming home at like 1, waking up for an 8 a.m. Monday class was just not happening. So I very, very, very quickly fell behind in calculus to the point where I remember my professor straight up saying at some point in class, she was like, you know, people who have less than 70% attendance also have less than a 70% grade, and see how that correlates? And she was just staring right at me the whole time. And I was like, I know, man, but it's just like, I can't come in at 8 a.m. on a Monday. I just can't do it. So that I struggled with. Luckily, I got a C plus, and we kept pushing.
You've got degrees.
They do. They sure do. But that was hard because at least for me, I had, to be completely honest, never really struggled academically in my whole life. Very much like if I got a B, I would cry type of person. So I remember getting that first C and being like the first time I failed a quiz, like really failed a quiz. I had failed some quizzes in high school, but I knew it wasn't my fault. This one I knew it was my fault. Like I knew it was just me not knowing what I was doing. And being like, hi mom. So I know that I'm going into 6 figures of debt and you are spending tens of thousands of dollars a year for this, but I did fail. That's very hard to do.
Oh no.
Very hard to do. So that was rough, but I was able to kind of make it through, and I got better slowly as the years went on. It also helped that I got a separate job that didn't make me work very late, so I had more time to study and actually do my work and not be so tired I didn't go to class. Mm-hmm. But that was definitely, it was an adjustment academically to literally learn how to study, learn how to teach myself things, learn how to, review material and go through it, because it was just something I had never really done before for myself, which was fun. Luckily, I didn't have the same struggles, I would say, academically in the CS courses I took, in like
because you had
intro to Python.
Yeah, Girls Who Code, right?
Because I had some Python knowledge, and I could have always been able to pick up relatively quickly. So I was doing good in that class. So it made me feel a bit better, because I was like, I'm not going to use an integral in my life. Like, I'll be okay. Yeah. If I don't figure out this integral, I will survive. Mm-hmm. If I don't figure out recursion, we might have a problem. So being able to be okay at the stuff that I really actually wanted to do in life was very nice, and was good.
Would you say like coding came to you naturally as compared to cello, or?
Yeah, I would. I honestly would. Like I've always been able to pick up code very easily. I've been able to understand the concepts pretty easily. There's some stuff that goes way over my head, like cybersecurity or machine code. Now that I don't know, but when it's a for loop, I've always been able to pick it up relatively quickly. And even if I can't, I'm very good at just kind of methodically, step by step, going through things, which helps a lot when you're working with code,
right?
Because if you're looking at a set of code and you know what each for loop does, or what each if statement does, or whatever's going on there, like I can just read it line by line, and eventually I'll figure it out, because it's not gonna, like, it's a computer program. It's going to do the same thing every time, regardless. It's not going to change up on me or start doing something else or force me to memorize something or something like that. Like, I can look at it long enough, and eventually I'll be able to piece it together, because the pieces are going to stay the same. So that I always enjoyed. I had fun doing it, and that helped as well. So even if I didn't understand something 100%, I always enjoyed doing like the silly CS homework questions, and the different assignments like that. I always enjoyed doing those much more than I would enjoy doing the integral worksheet or something like that. I definitely always had fun. So even if it was difficult, I still enjoyed my time doing it, which helped a lot.
Gotcha. And then one question I forgot to ask, like, why didn't you pursue a professional cello career? What made you think OCS is the right path for me?
Well, one thing is I definitely hit a wall. I hit a wall with the cello, where I hit a point where I would play something, or we would play something as an orchestra, and my professor would be like, "No, that sucked," and then we play it again, and she would be like, "That was good now," and I would be like, "That was the same. That sounded the same, and it sounded just as good." So I don't really know what's going on here. And it kind of hit a point where, in order to get to that next level, or to get to that professional level, it would require enough work that I wasn't having fun anymore. Like I always enjoyed playing in an orchestra. I always enjoyed playing a piece by myself. But as a professional, you do have to do your skills for an hour to warm up, and I'd rather die.
You'd rather code for an hour rather than warm up.
I am happy enough with how I play, not practicing scales for an hour, that I didn't need to practice scales for an hour to get to the next level. It wasn't important enough to me.
So there's like marginal, what do you call it? Like decreasing return or something?
Yeah,
like that?
The returns were getting a lot lower.
Yeah.
Because at some point, like, especially with the cello, at some point you learn all the techniques and you get up to the highest notes and you get down to the lowest notes. and you're able to play your 4-octave scales and all that and go all the way up there. And after that, it's just perfecting the craft. It's just perfecting everything that you already know, and maybe learning some helpful techniques to perfect those things, but it's just perfecting the craft. And if I have to put too much work into perfecting the craft, I'm not having fun.
So fun is important for you.
Yeah, it's important. I'd like to enjoy what I'm doing.
Which is what you found in coding.
Yeah, and definitely the amount of work I would have had to do to be very successful in music would have made me not enjoy it. And that was never, I never wanted to not enjoy it.
Right. Because life is short.
Life is too short. And when you're a musician, music is your life. It's your life from beginning to end, and it's not all you do, but it's a big part of you, and it encompasses a lot of who you are. Versus I love coding. I enjoy it very much. I have a lot of fun doing it, but I can log off at 5 p.m. and not code. Like I can do something else. Yeah. If you're a musician, you're going to be a musician. And so if you get to a point where you're not enjoying it, then what do you have left?
Right.
What are you doing? Versus I knew that I could do something I already enjoyed, coding, and then I could stop, and then I could still play the cello. Like I could still do it for fun and have a great time and still enjoy like the art form, and also not stress myself out about how if I miss this note or if I mess this up or if I don't play well enough, I don't eat. So that kind of solidified it for me very easily.
Gotcha. Cool. So NYU engineering. Let's get back to the tech bros, because you mentioned the tech bro scene. How was NYU with the tech bros? Like, were there a lot of tech bros there?
Yes. NYU had a good amount of tech bro type of dudes.
Can you explain what a tech bro is for people who don't know?
Yeah, I mean, I can define the very specific NYU brand of tech bro, because I think it was I'm not sure if it's very specific, but I don't want to generalize. But the NYU tech bros were they were locked in. They knew the history of Steve Jobs and and the history of Bill Gates and the history of Elon Musk, and they knew all of that. They had probably coded in 5 languages since the womb. But the biggest thing about them was not just that they had coded in 5 languages since the womb, but they wanted to make sure you knew it. And they were also very condescending about the fact that you didn't.
Ooh, that's the worst.
And that was the worst, because there's some people who had been coding literally since birth and who were very kind and were very helpful and would just teach you the things that they knew and were like passionate from a very positive and like supportive kind of place. And then there were some people who just felt better than you because of how much they knew about coding. And that was not the best environment.
So this was unlike Girls Who Code.
This is very unlike Girls Who Code. And I would say that my professor kind of embodied that mindset,
vibe,
and that tech bro vibe, that sense of condescension, very much like if you didn't get anything, it was very condescending. So you could tell when people didn't understand things, everyone just kind of shrunk back. And so you would never really get any productive questions in class. And you get a lot of condescension. I would say what made it kind of the worst place that it manifested was in our Intro to CS class. This was a 2-credit course, which made us do like 6 credits worth of work. But this was the kind of general intro to CS. What is CS? What are the different concepts? What are the different fields? All that type of stuff in computer science. Because the field is ginormous. It's huge. So that introductory class in this big auditorium, and every week there was something that was not good. So I remember the first week we did one where we had to do a matching algorithm or he was explaining a matching algorithm, and it was like a dating app algorithm, and like he was just specifically designing it. He was like, we're only going to care about the men's preferences and match them with people that they would care about.
Oh, no.
And someone said, what if we didn't do that? And he said, that's too complicated. Sorry. Someone asked, like, what if someone's gay? And he was like, we're just not going to do that here. And so that was a very fun class where a bunch of us were like, what is going on? We had, so that was that class. We had one class where he was just talking about search engines, and asking people what search engines they used. And one kid just like was like this, like he was desperate to speak. He was desperate. His hand was high and it was sturdy. And, and when the professor finally called on him, he was like, DuckDuckGo. I use DuckDuckGo. Do none of you use DuckDuckGo? Do you even care about internet privacy? Like, all the companies are tracking you and you don't even care. How can you even call yourselves computer scientists if you don't care about internet privacy? Oh. That took me aback because I'd never even heard of DuckDuckGo. And that week we had learned what a for loop was. So I can't say I was invested in internet privacy at the time. So that was very stressful, especially because the professor wasn't like, no, it's okay. He was like, oh, that is a good point. We should care about this as computer scientists. And I was like, oh, we should?
Oh, no.
Are we sure? And then another part of this class that was very difficult is that the TAs made all the projects for the class. And they were very ambitious. We had multiple projects of like making a to-do list with HTML, CSS, JavaScript. This is something I could do, but no one taught us HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So it's a bunch of first-year engineering students who just learned what a conditional statement was that week. And they were like, make a to-do list, go. And not only make a to-do list that works and checks things off and host it on AWS.
Oh my God. First year. Oh.
Oh, man. And so that class was just people who we all either failed all the projects or it was the super geniuses who got like 120% because they got bonus points. So you felt there was no middle ground of feeling okay. Uh-huh. You would just kind of feel very, very inadequate. And all the projects were like that. We did like a security project like that. We did a bunch of other things like that. And it definitely wasn't the most supportive of environments. And at the very least in those classes, I wasn't having fun. Like I wasn't enjoying myself in those classes at all. And so especially freshman year, I started to get a little worried.
Like belonging, I was like, sense of belonging. Yeah,
because for me, I was like, I came all the way out here. I'm going into so much debt to be here, like egregious amounts of debt to be here. And my parents are putting a lot into this and a lot is kind of riding on me to be successful here. And I don't know. Like I was like, I don't know. Cause if these two classes are how life is, mm-hmm. I can't do it. I know I couldn't do it. So luckily my freshman year, I started going to, a lot of the OSTEM meetings, which is out in STEM, like the LGBTQ organization, on campus. And they're also just a general professional organization, national, international. And the upperclassmen in that club, I won't say their names for privacy, but the two people in that club really influenced me a lot as a person. They emulated what I wanted to emulate going into college a lot. So I looked up to them a lot. I wanted to emulate what they had a lot, and they were super, super supportive, and really uplifting. And so in my first semester, freshman year, I said, I'm just going to go to the OSTEM conference, which was in Chicago that year. I didn't know anybody very well. It was all a bunch of upperclassmen who knew each other and were very close and were very good friends. And I just knew the president because he was like, you should come to the club. And are you not coming to the conference? You should come to the conference. That was it. That's all I really knew at that time. But I was like, if that conference where I feel like I should feel belonging, if I don't, then there's no shot. I was like, if that conference doesn't work out for me, then I know that like Girls Who Code was a one-off. And this is probably not going to work out. So luckily I was able to get good funding and I was able to go to this conference and I had a blast. I had so much fun. I met really great people. All of my like classmates, not really because they were all upperclassmen, but all the people from NYU who went with me were really supportive and they didn't just like leave me to hang out by myself because I didn't know anybody. And I just had a really, really amazing time at that conference and got to meet people who were in the industry who were like, it's okay. Like, you'll be fine. You'll be okay. And so I was able to get a better sense of myself and also where I kind of wanted to be industry wise and a good knowledge that like I could find a spot. Cause at this point I knew that there was going to be spots that were not for me. But it helped me realize that there definitely were going to be spots that were for me. And I knew that I could find them. Mm-hmm. So that really helped with me feeling a lot better about the industry and my career path and my choice of what I wanted to do. It really solidified it for me that like, I can do this. I will enjoy it. And we went from there. I didn't drop out. So
congratulations. Thank you, OSTEM, for saving Tatyana.
Yeah, definitely. OSTEM, NSBE was a big one. National Society of Black Engineers. All of those really helped me feel like I also belonged in the industry and in the field and could be very successful, which was great. They're great organizations, both of them.
Round of applause. So did you get more active in OSTEM, like pick leadership positions and like how did your role evolve in OSTEM?
Yeah, I got pretty active in OSTEM. I'd say when was it? It was the spring semester of freshman year. I became like the first year representative. Okay. I think they just made up this position so I could hang out with them because it didn't exist before I joined and it barely existed after I wasn't in that position. But that helped a lot because I didn't do much representing. I was just able to help with events and curate things and like learn a lot about how a club functioned in the university setting and help out with that. And then the year after that, I think I did conference chair that year. So all the logistics that go into us going to the conference, because it's a lot of grant requests and getting paperwork and getting scholarships for people and all of that. And then for my last 2 years, I was treasurer of OSTEM. I probably would have ran for president, but I knew I didn't have time. Right. I knew I didn't have time to do what I would have wanted to do and not feel like I was letting the club down and the organization down in some way. Mm-hmm. So I just stuck with treasurer, which I enjoyed. I love being a treasurer. I think I still have the purchasing cards because they never got them back because we just left during COVID. Oh my God. So I still have all the purchasing cards. I have two. I have two because there was 2 clubs I was treasurer for.
What was the other club?
The Association of Computer Machinery, the women's chapter.
Ah, okay. So you were very active.
Oh yeah, I was pretty active in the clubs. Later on in college, I became a TA for the engineering department, and that started taking up a lot of my time.
Tell us more about that. Like, what did you do? What was your role in the TA?
Oh, yeah, this is fun.
Yeah, teaching career.
Yeah, so I knew I enjoyed teaching, but also a lot of the people that I knew in OSTEM were engineering department TAs.
Okay.
And the engineering department ran the first year engineering course that everyone took. It was a class where you'd go to lectures and people would lecture you about whatever field they were in. And that was it. You had labs and then you would write reports and give presentations on those labs. And then you had like a semester long project When I started, it was Lego EV3 robots. It drastically changed over the years. But when I started, it was just a little robot that you would mess around with, EV3 Mindstorm robot. So I applied for that job to be a TA for the department, mainly because I knew people in it. They said it was a good job. It paid well. It was going to pay better than the kebab stand. Easy. It would help me because I could get federal work study for it. So I applied for that job and I got it. Another job I was shocked at because they asked a question for us to just teach them something, anything. And I taught them how to do eyeshadow. And it was Georgie Gunter, who was like old. This man worked on the Apollo missions, like to the moon. So very old man and a bunch of like just dude TA people. And I was like, we're gonna learn how to do eyeshadow because that's what I know I could teach you like easily from the top of my head. So I got that job, which was really fun.
Nice.
And my first year as a TA, I was just doing normal TA stuff. I taught the labs. And I did some of the open lab where people would work on the robotics projects and stuff. I would just walk around and help people with that. And that was my first year in my second year of college. I think it was just the second year. Yeah. And then in my third year, the way that this organization, the engineering department was structured was everything was TA run. Like from top to bottom, everything in this department was run by TAs. So you had head TAs that were like HR and management and overall like delegation of tasks. You had a payroll department that was run by TAs. Inventory was TAs. Communications, like they uploaded the manuals and did all the emails. Those were TAs. Grading was all TAs. Like from doing the grading to writing the rubrics for the people to do the grading, those were TAs. The people who ran the computers and the servers and everything that this course used, those were TAs.
Wow.
So we also had the research and development committee. And that committee would run literally the research and development of all the course. So all of the labs were created and tested by that committee. All of the different projects were tested and created and maintained by that committee. Inventory would like check the inventory, but whoever figured out what we needed to buy, that was R&D. And in my third year, I believe two of the people who worked R&D who were appointed like before, both left the department. And so I remember they called me and coworker Frank to just talk in the office, and they're like, what do you think about being an R&D deputy? And I was like, I don't even know who this man is. And I didn't apply because in your second year, you can apply for one of these like head or more admin, it's called admin positions. And I didn't apply for anything. So I was very shocked that they were asking me at all. Cause I also wasn't super invested. Like you could be not an admin in the R&D committee and still help them with like stocking stuff and building robots and things of that nature. And I never did any of that. So I was really shocked. But I said, yes, sure. Why not? And that became a big chunk of my life for the rest of college. Junior, senior year was all R&D because it was a very, very intensive job. Working with creating all the different projects. At that point, we had started to develop a new called Rapid Assembly and Design Project, which was just an open-ended project where students could say, I want to build blank. And we'd say, here's $100.
Oh, wow.
Have at it. So for that, we had to come up with the benchmarks for them, come up with the requirements. We had to manage all of the different other TAs who were mentoring those groups and do the trainings for that, doing the trainings for the labs, coming up with new labs, fixing existing labs. And so it was a big time commitment. Spent a lot of time in that TA office and spent a lot of time in the R&D room, a lot of time in open lab. And it was a huge time commitment that became excruciating when COVID hit.
Oh, what happened?
Because we're a hands-on engineering lab. Like, people come into the lab and they work with their hands as a team, and they build a robot as a team. And everything that we did was hands-on. So having to transition this class into a remote version of it. For that second half of the spring semester already was a nightmare. I remember everyone scrambling, trying to just record videos of things so that students could have a video to watch of someone doing the work to write reports on. Mm-hmm. It's like a blur. I don't even remember what we did for that first COVID year, like that March through June, just finishing the semester. Yeah. But that whole summer was just crunching, that semester and the summer, because there's also a summer semester that we teach. Mm-hmm. So we still have to teach the summer semester. Was trying to figure out how to make these labs remote. And so it was a nightmare of turning, like, for example, we had one lab where people would build big booms, like a civil engineering kind of a boom, and we would put weights on it and see how well their boom did. Like, turning that into a CAD lab, like computer-aided design, and building it with Inventor and Fusion 360 and doing simulation tests on it. Turning a blood sampling lab, like creating a full-on simulation of doing the drug testing and doing the blood typing for that lab. Literally every lab we had needed to be converted in some way to a digital format. And so it wasn't just converting it, but it was rewriting all the manuals, rewriting all the presentations, figuring out what we were doing, just for virtual. And then for the fall semester, they said we're going hybrid. So now we had to figure out how to combine the virtual stuff we did with potentially in-person students, how to get in-person and virtual students to work together on a hands-on project. And so it just, while also at the same time trying to develop new things, like we were developing a whole new robotics program alongside this. And it was very, very, very labor intensive. Luckily, worked with great people. We had a lot of fun doing it. We got to work on some pretty awesome stuff. But it took a lot of time.
Wow. It's like running a company, right? You were the head of the department.
Very much running a company. It was openly said, like, as part of the department, like the professor would say, we want to run this department like a little company. Like the head TAs are the CEO, or like the head professor is the CEO. And this is like, people lead departments, people are under it. It was very much what they were going for, like having it be a little company. And some things were not done very well. But it definitely was a huge learning experience. And it was very, like, I'll never have an experience like that again. Like, I had a lot of fun just messing around with wires, messing around with resistors, messing around with circuits, coming up with different circuits, developing a robotics project is some of the most fun I've had ever. Like, I remember bringing home my little kit, and it's literally a hunk of metal and a bunch of wires and a battery, and TSA being like, what are you doing with this actually? Like, what? And I'm like, I'm developing a robotics program for my engineering department, and I needed to bring it home with me for winter break so that I can write it. Because we had to write the whole library. We wrote an entire code library from scratch for that project, which was a lot of work. Wow. But it was also a lot of fun. Like, I was playing around with this robot in front of a Christmas tree at home. And my dad's a mechanical engineer, and he's also a nerd, so he was having a lot of fun with it. Honestly, they should have paid my dad for a lot of the work in this engineering department, because I ask him all the time, like, what do you think? How can we do this? And because he's a nerd, I remember at some point I had a sensor that I took home, but I didn't realize the sensor needed to be soldered. And I was like, oh my God, this sucks. I'm not going to be able to work on it. And my dad was just like, I have one of those.
Ooh.
I was like, what do you mean you have a soldering iron? He was like, yeah, it's in the garage. So that's something that I don't think is replicated anywhere else. I think it's very unique. It's got its unique pros and cons, but it's definitely a unique experience that you're not going to find somewhere else.
Would you ever consider running or starting a company in the future?
No.
Once is enough?
No, this is enough. It's one thing that I've learned is that I do like to do work hands-on. For example, I like coding a lot, and I liked working with the robotics a lot. And when you run something, you don't get to do that anymore.
Okay.
Like one thing I learned, for example, because I became head of R&D, I was no longer a lab TA. I became a roaming TA, which is the TA who literally roams around all the different lab sections and helps people out. And if anyone has any questions, you are the arbiter of information.
Oh, so it's like a people manager in an engineering organization.
Yeah. And as a roaming TA, I was like, I wish I was teaching. I wish I was teaching the lab. Like, I'd rather actually teach the lab and do the lab with people and help them out, as opposed to sit in the middle room and wait until someone has a question. And so when you run a company or you start a company, like even if it's something I'm very passionate about, you very rarely get to actually do that thing that you're very passionate about. And I just don't have the heart for that. I'd much rather actually be able to do that thing.
So you're a hands-on person.
Yeah, I'm a hands-on person, but I'm also I think I'm realistic about business, and business is its own field.
Okay. And you don't want to touch that.
And it's not a field that I am personally very interested in. And it's also, it would be a field that would completely take me away from what I actually want to do.
Gotcha.
Like, even if I was to start a tech startup on something I really cared about, I would never actually be able to do the tech as a founder. You would do a lot of business, a lot of business plans, a lot of talking to investors, a lot of talking to a board, a lot of
managing people.
Yeah, I want to code. Right. I have the most fun when it's just me and a new project, like from scratch. Gotcha. Let's write some code.
Coding.
That's when I have the most fun.
That's like your vibe. Teaching.
It's when I have the most fun, and I don't really crave or desire that at least at this point in my life.
Okay.
We'll see.
Got it.
We'll see. Maybe I'll change.
And then you were also a Girls Who Code instructor, right? Over the summer.
Yeah. So I became a TA. I was a TA for them 2 summers. I did an in-person and a remote TA. And then my senior year, like after I graduated, I was a full instructor for them that one summer before I started my job at Trimble Maps. And I did it because I really wanted to. I really enjoyed Girls Who Code. I thought it was a good organization. I thought that I could do the job very well. I thought I could have a good impact on people. I hope I did, which is why I did it. And that I also really, really enjoyed. Being a TA my first year made me really want to be an instructor even more.
Like, what was the difference between TA and instructor?
So as a TA, TAs were always college students.
Okay.
And they would just be assisting the teacher. So the teacher usually was one who taught the most. Every once in a while, a TA could give a little lesson. But especially in person, the TAs were just kind of roaming around, helping people out, answering questions. We were also like vague logistics stuff. Like we would pick up the food for lunch and stuff like that.
Okay.
But being a TA that first year, especially in person, I knew I had things I wanted to do. I was like, I would watch a lesson and I would be like, I think I can do that better. I think I could do that differently. And so that really made me, like, I already knew I wanted to be an instructor at least once, but that made me really, really want to try it. But to be an instructor for Girls Who Code, you have to have a bachelor's of science. You have to have a degree.
So you waited until you graduated.
So I waited until I graduated. And I told myself I was going to do it. I don't know if it was the best decision. I mean, I guess it worked out. But everyone, I remember my senior year of college, was really, really worried about finding like a full-time job for right out of college. And I was actively trying not to. Like I was actively not worried too much about trying to get a full-time job out of college because I wanted to do Girls Who Code for a summer, at least one. So once I started Girls Who Code, I got real stressed because I needed something for after. I had rent and bills, and I started getting real stressed.
Wait, was this a remote job?
This was remote because it was still COVID. I think it was 2021.
Okay.
So it was still remote at the time. So that I do. I wish I would have been able to teach in person just once.
How was that experience, though? The instructor experience?
Instructor experience. Oh, it was great. Oh, it was so much fun. And especially remote. I think people think about remote and like as a lot of cons or like not great for teaching as like a mode of instruction. But one, you meet people you never would. Like I was teaching classes for people in New York. I was teaching classes for people in California. I was teaching classes where a TA of mine was in Hawaii. Like, so you meet people that you would never have met or had any impact on whatsoever without that mode. And luckily, like engineering classes and teaching and like specifically coding teaching lends itself very well to remote and virtual environments.
Yep.
Because you can highlight your code, you can move stuff around, you can have people code for you, so there's a lot of creativity that you can have there. And you're able to just have a really good amount of time, a good fun time. One thing about virtual is that they cut down on the hours. So when we were in person, you were there all day. You were there from 9 to 3. This is why we had so many card game breaks.
Yeah.
Because you were there all day. Like you were there longer than you were in school. So it really was very, very intensive. Versus virtually, all the classes would be from like 9 to 11, 9 to noon. And then we have some office hours and stuff like that later. But you just have that one lesson during the day. So I feel like it was probably a little easier to get a grasp of the curriculum and plan out a day because the day was shorter. Yeah. There was a lot less. They also changed the format. So instead of a 7-week intensive, it was 2 weeks. Oh. So it was just like 1 week of learning HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and then 1 week of doing a project. So it's a lot more straightforward, a lot more to the point, very, very streamlined, very quickly. But still give you a good amount of time to like meet everyone, talk to everyone, get to know people. Like I still have students that I talk to. I'm literally writing a college recommendation letter. Wow. Right now.
Very impactful.
For one of them, which is honestly awesome, but kind of terrifying. I hope I do a good job for her. So
I'm sure you did. Yeah.
I hope so. So that program, I'm really glad I did it. Like, I don't regret doing it at all. One, because I ended up in a very good job, so I'm happy with it. It might have been very different if I ended Girls Who Code and I was broke and jobless. Maybe then I would have regretted it. But it worked out very well for me in the end, and I'm really glad it's something I did because it's one of the few things that I knew for a long time I really wanted to do. Like going into college, I knew I wanted to teach Girls Who Code at least once.
Awesome. So congratulations.
So it was really good to actually do it. Oh, it felt great.
Nice.
It felt great. Because it's everything I like about teaching. Because you don't have to do any grading. You're not grading people.
Okay.
You're not parent-teacher conferencing. You're not teaching to a test. You're not teaching to state standards. You're just trying to impart some knowledge on people and hope they have fun and hope they learn something, which is teaching at its purest, which is brilliant. There's nothing like it. It's so much fun.
Did you consider teaching as a career?
Very briefly, but I knew it wasn't going to work.
Because of the reasons you mentioned, right?
Yeah, all those things. I knew it would beat me down very quickly. It's another thing where I knew I would start to not enjoy it. And that's not something you would ever want to subject a kid to. Like I wouldn't want to be working with very young, impressionable minds, angry, stressed, and
burnt
not having
out.
fun.
Yeah.
Like that's not great. Like it's not great anywhere, but that's really where I don't want to be that.
Okay.
And to be completely honest, I knew that financially I couldn't do it. I have 6 figures of debt. Yeah. I know how much debt I'm in. I know what I've got to do financially. So it wasn't really on the cards.
Gotcha. So after Girls Who Code, what was your thought process regarding your career?
I actually had a very interesting thought process that got me here, which is crazy because it shouldn't have lined up. When I was doing Girls Who Code, all the jobs I was applying for were front-end jobs.
Okay.
Because in college, I took integrated digital media. That was my minor. And that was the minor that actually taught me how to do anything worthy of a job. My computer science major, I learned a lot of basics. I learned a lot of fundamentals.
Theory.
I know what a queue is.
Probably, right?
Yeah, I know what a queue is. I know what a graph is. I know what a depth first search is. But I didn't really learn skills that I felt I could take into the workplace.
Okay.
Versus in my IDM classes, I took web design, and then I took web development, and then I took reactive web development, or I forget what the class is called. So in those classes, I had actually built sites. Like I had built React projects, I had built interactive projects, I built stuff that had a vague front end and back end. I worked with APIs, and it's what I did for my senior project as well. So going into my job search, I was like, well, I have an engineering department background where I just messed around with some robots. I have a teaching background, and I have some vague, like front end like portfolio pieces. So that's what I applied for. I applied for a bunch of front end jobs, mainly because I've also felt like I would enjoy it more, which I learned I was wrong. But I applied for a lot of front end jobs, and I actually, when I applied for Triple Maps, which is where we work now,
yes,
I applied for the front end role. I applied for the front end Angular role. And I remember my first interview, they were asking me about SQL, and I was like, why do y'all care? Like, why are you asking me SQL? Like,
databases, right?
I thought I was supposed to work on React, like Angular. Like, I thought I'd be working in front end. And then I think it was in that first interview where they were like, yeah, nah, we're really not looking at you for that. And I was like, oh, all right.
Wait, before we move on, can you explain front end versus back end?
Yeah, sure. So front end is very much, front end is stuff that you see.
Okay.
Is always how I try to explain it. Like if you're looking at a website, what you are looking at, that is the front end. What you're interacting with, that is the front end. Everything behind the scenes so that when you click on a button, the thing that is supposed to happen happens. That's more back end. What's making all the data and tweets actually show up on your Twitter feed, that's more back end. And I personally, I always thought that I would be a front end gal because I'm it's not tactile, but it's whatever is visually tactile. Like I like working on something that I can see.
Right.
I like having a tangible
end product
thing that I can present and be like, look, I did some work. Ta-da. Here it is.
So you applied for a front end role and they said, no, this is not a front end.
This is not actually, that's really not what we're going for.
Interesting.
And at that point, I mean, I had never done an internship or anything like that in college. So I didn't know, to be completely honest. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I just had a vague sense of that, my resume probably skews more front end, and I know I didn't hate it. So I'll just apply for that because that's where I've got the best shot.
Okay.
So when they said, oh no, that's not really what we're going for, I said, sure, I might as well try it out. There's only a couple things in computer science that I knew I would hate. And it was cybersecurity, and deep level machine code, like creating an operating system. Those were the two where even if I was offered a job, I knew I wouldn't take it.
Okay.
So when I was offered it, I said, I might as well. I might as well try it out. They're giving me a chance as someone with literally no experience working in the tech industry at all, working at a software company at all, working on software in general, like companies' software. So I was like, they're taking a chance on me. It seems interesting enough. Let me have at it.
You got the job. right?
I got it. So it worked.
So how was the onboarding process? How did you get up to speed? Because you said you didn't do any internships.
Oh yeah, I didn't do any internships, and I knew not a thing, not a single thing. None of the technologies that we use at work have I ever touched before this job ever. So I was very nervous. I remember I sent our boss a message being like, "Hey, what technology do we use so I could try to learn?" And he sent me like this long list of like 50 stuff, and I just said, "Nah, I'm just gonna learn on the job. I can't do that. There's just no way I'm gonna pick all that up." But I started coding in C#. Me and my best friend, we were both job searching. So we had been leak coding together every day for like 2 months in our job search. And so she was still job searching. So I started doing the leak code with her in C# so I could try to learn C#. But that was just like a week. Besides that, it really was, I think, the way that we did onboarding, where they said, here's a little project that doesn't interact with anything, that's its own thing. Go. That helped me a lot, actually, because I was able to look at existing code, look at existing, best practices, and look at the knowledge base and all that type of stuff. Take pieces from existing code and put it all together to figure out what I was supposed to do. And so having that, I think, isolated ecosystem helped me play around and figure out what was going on without being too stressed. Like, at no point did I think, if this works, I'm going to crash the company. So that helped a lot, because I knew that if something messed up, it would just mess me up and no one else. And that really helped with onboarding. And so I think that first month of slowly starting off with very isolated things and just working on new projects, starting from scratch, getting used to the syntax and how files are made and how classes are made.
And best practices. Right?
And what an interface is. And like all that little stuff, being able to learn it slowly over time and being able to kind of teach it to myself helped a lot, because I always work best in projects.
Okay. So hands-on, right?
I work a lot better by just trying to do it than if someone was like, today we're going to learn what an interface is.
Okay.
I'm just going to learn better. So that helped me out a lot. And I think I was able to get up to speed pretty quickly.
Yeah, I would say. Yeah.
Thanks.
And then you have worked on traffic primarily. Can you explain, like, a crash course briefly, what traffic does?
What is traffic?
Yeah. Traffic mama. Hey.
What is traffic? Well, traffic is traffic. I mean, it's literally what speeds cars are traveling at on that road. Is there anything going on this road? Do we have any incidents on this road? And do we have any roads that are closed, which is a big one? Those, I would say, are the three main facets of what we would call traffic.
I see.
There's a lot more nuance there, but at the end of the day, those are the three things we're looking for.
Okay.
What's the speed? Is anything not moving at all? And is anything going on that we should know about? Those are the three big ones.
I see. And then how has your role evolved? Because I know you're a team lead now. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. Can you talk about the evolution of your role?
Yeah, I mean, I think it evolved very quickly, because when I started on traffic, Kai, who had been working on it before, had been moved to another team.
Yes.
So a lot of me working on traffic was me doing something and being like, "Hey, Kai, how you doing? I got a question." And slowly, and figuring it out. He's such a king. Figuring out things from him and getting questions answered by him, but still very much working on traffic by myself. No one else was working on traffic.
Wow, new kid working on traffic by yourself.
It was just me.
Dang.
So I mean, it was fun, but it was challenging. But it was also nice, because it was a very isolated ecosystem. So I honestly felt like if I messed up, I might be okay. Like I never felt like I would be messing something up for someone else, or that I would ruin something that now someone else has to deal with. Like I knew that it came through me eventually. At the beginning, it went through Kai, but I think slowly over time, it started going through me more and more. Especially as I started to get to work with more of the existing traffic infrastructure. Once I got a sense of what everything was doing, I think I really felt very comfortable in it. I'd say 6 months in, probably like January, February is where I really felt like I knew what I was doing in this ecosystem, at least. Okay. Like I have opinions now that probably matter and are informed. And that was a big step, feeling like I knew what I was talking about, as opposed to guessing what I was talking about and sometimes being right about it. Mm-hmm. That was a big fun step. And then I would say a couple months ago is when we started adding other people onto Traffic. And being a team lead has been fun. It's been very fun being like a question answerer. Because I was always a question asker. So being a question answer has been fun. I remember the first time like they made a PR and I was like, oh my God, that's my job. Like I'm
to review
no one's going to approve
code.
This but me.
Yeah.
No one else is going to approve this but me. That was really fun. It was a big turnaround where I was like, oh, I'm the one here. Mm-hmm. Which was a big shift. That I've enjoyed. It's been really fun being able to work with other people. And not just like ranting to you about Traffic and trying to explain what I'm talking about. Like I promise this is bad or something like that, or I promise this is good. Like people who are in the ecosystem. So when I talk about something, it's a lot less explaining, which is nice. Also having people to talk to on a regular basis is nice, mm-hmm. to be completely honest, because Traffic was very by itself. Like when I talk to people, it was purely social. It's just like, hey, what's up? Now I get to talk about work, which is nice. Mm-hmm. Being in a more managerial role is interesting because it's not new for me, since what I did in the engineering department, I did a lot of people managing. Yep. So it's not new, but it's definitely interesting to be back.
How different is it?
It's not that different at all, to be very honest. At the end of the day, I still get to code, which is what's very important to me. Okay. I cannot people manage my whole life. I will wither away. But being able to help people and being able to direct a project has been very nice. I do enjoy having some agency in the work that I do and having like an opinion on the way a project goes or what we're working on that is informed and valid. Mm-hmm. that I enjoy. So all of that I think is a big plus. Like I do some architecture design now. I didn't know what AWS was last year. Mm-hmm. And now I'm doing infrastructure design on different like AWS systems. So that's really fun. It's something that I never would have envisioned myself doing, I guess, this early in my career, because I'm very early. This is my first year. I think I just got my anniversary like 2 months ago. So I'm not even a year and a half in. So
your career is
that's been very exciting.
This is awesome.
Yeah. It's been very exciting. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yay.
So it's been very exciting.
Yeah. Where do you see yourself in like 5 to 10 years? Would you still be coding plus managing people? Is that the path you want to go?
Yeah. I mean, I think my one thing that I've definitely learned in the past couple months is that I need to code. Like every once in a while I have one day where I'm just like answering questions or looking at AWS CloudWatch metrics or Sumo logs or like drawing architecture. And those are the worst days. They're just the worst days. Like it's not as fun. Okay. And so I've learned that I need to code to have fun and to enjoy my job. I couldn't not code full time, which is good because I feel like people go into like either two, like I guess senior engineer tracks or like more managerial tracks. I feel like that's how people kind of split off in this industry.
Yeah, where do you want to go? The senior route?
I definitely want to go more on the engineer route. I want to become super comfortable with like code bases and systems. I want to be able to just like look at a code review and know and like know something, be like, oh yeah, that's wrong. Like, why would you know that? Like, my example I always use is like iDisposable. I just want to look at something and know that it needs a using, like that level of like intrinsic knowledge and stuff like that. I definitely always want to be on the software coding side of things, at least where I'm at now.
Gotcha.
We'll see. I don't know.
So staff engineer.
I'm young. My brain hasn't even fully developed yet, so this might change. But
so I guess staff engineer, principal engineer.
Yeah, staff engineer, senior engineer. Because the terms in this industry change wildly. A mid-level is a junior somewhere. A mid is a senior 2 somewhere else.
Yeah. A
staff is a principal. So I don't really even know what the stages of a career are in this industry because everyone calls them something completely different. But I know at the end of the day, I want to code. Always.
Awesome.
At the end of the day.
Nice. So looking back from childhood to now, would you say that you're successful?
Oh, wow. All right. I think so. I do. I think so.
Why?
I think I've done what I've wanted to do in life a lot. Like I think I've achieved a lot of my goals.
Yes.
That I set up for myself. And I think for me, a big thing has always been I wanted to. Both my parents worked very, very hard and got very, very lucky to put me in the position I was in. And so I never wanted to do less than that or be less than that. And I always wanted to do something that I thought would make them very proud. And I think they are. So I count that as a success.
Awesome.
I count that.
And how do you define
as a win?
Success?
How do I define success? I think being comfortable, being happy, and getting and setting goals and achieving them. Both. I think being able to set a goal is a good indicator of success. Like knowing what you want to do, having some form of not plan for yourself, but like ambition or drive or passion or something like that. Just having that in yourself is like a good life. It's a good place to be.
Purpose.
So
having purpose.
I'd say definitely being happy and getting a couple goals. You're not going to get all of them, but getting a couple goals down. That's my success, at least.
And then they say work hard, get lucky. What percentage of your success do you attribute to hard work versus luck?
Oh.
In your career?
In my career?
Yes, so far.
I'd say it's like 70 luck.
Can you explain that?
I'd say like 70 luck. I think I've been lucky to be in good places, and then I've been able to do enough hard work in those places to get lucky again. Like I was lucky that my mom heard of Girls Who Code and made me apply when she did.
Yes.
I worked hard to get into college, but I was lucky enough to be able to go. Like I was lucky enough to be able to say, yeah, I can do 6 figures of loans. That's okay. And go, which is insane. It's insanity. I did good in school, but I was lucky to meet great people in OSTEM. If those people weren't there, I don't know where I would be today. I worked hard in my job in the engineering department, but I was also lucky to get it. Like people had to drop out for me to get that job. I did good work in it, and I think my work there helped me get to where I am now, but I still had to get lucky to get there. So a lot of things have been a lot of luck. And then after getting lucky, to still work very hard to get to that next bit of luck. So I would say I definitely needed to, like, if I had bombed in the engineering department, I don't think the people here would have wanted me. Right. So I still needed to do a good job. But to even be in the position to do a good job, I needed a little bit of luck. Just a little bit.
So luck can get you in the door. Hard work gets you to the next door.
It gets you to the next door.
Awesome. I love that explanation. Awesome. And then you said success means being happy. What makes you happy?
I mean, a lot of things. Like, we need a list.
Sure.
I think enjoying what I do at work is a big one because that's 8 hours of my day.
Mm-hmm.
Family's really big for me. My family makes me very happy. I have good friends around me. My friends make me really happy. Being able to still be fulfilled artistically, being able to play the cello and all that stuff makes me very happy. Honestly, half my life I live for food. I think it's just the best thing in the world, like being able to cook and bake and cook for other people and make good food for yourself and for other people. That nothing like it to me. Mm-hmm. So for me, really enjoying what I'm doing and having good people around me.
Very simple.
Has made me very happy.
Simple very but simple. Effective ways to be happy.
It's worked wonders. It's worked very well.
Awesome. So final 2 questions. First one, advice you have for young girls who want to get into software engineering, but they're intimidated or afraid or, facing like confidence issues. What advice do you have for them?
First, I just promise you can do it. Like, like you can really do it. I've seen too many people. You can do it. Like, there might be a lot of obstacles or things where you can get in your head. But I was in my head the whole time.
And you made it through.
Most people I know were in their head the whole time. And we all went through Girls Who Code being like, I don't know what I'm doing. We all went through college being like, I don't know what I'm doing. We all went through job applications being like, I don't know what I'm doing. And every person that I've been through that with is now doing it. So, like, don't let yourself get in your way, because you can really do it. And even if you're something that you're really stressed about or nervous about, it's definitely better to have tried it.
And then I guess one thing I learned from you is find a community, right? Yeah,
definitely. It's hard to do things when you're by yourself. It just is. Like, if you don't have someone to help you and to a community to help prop you up and people where you can feel safe in, it's hard to do that for yourself. I think it's possible, but it's not easy. So finding good people in a support system can change a lot. It really can.
Mm-hmm. And then final question. What advice do you have for young people and lost people trying to navigate their career, whether it's college major or job?
Oh, might be just say yes to stuff. Just say yes to stuff. If you really don't know what you're doing, or you're not sure, or you're feeling confused, if someone offers you something, just do it. What's the worst? What's the worst that's going to happen? Like, you already don't know. So you might as well just try it and see. You're either going to figure out that you hate it, so now you've checked something off that you don't want to do, or you'll like it. Maybe you'll find a thing that you want to do forever, or something that you want to do for 5 months. But at the very least, you tried it and you're going to get something out of it, whether it's a nah or it's something that you want to do. Because most things that I've done have been something that I didn't fully set out for. But I was like, yeah, I guess, why not?
Like cello.
Right. Like, I might as well do it. And there's been stuff I learned I didn't like, and there's been stuff I learned that I did. Mm-hmm. So that definitely, just say yes to stuff when it comes your way.
Just do it.
Just do it. Is this podcast sponsored?
No, it's not. I wish. Sponsor me, please.
We'll get there.
So I guess try things, say yes to things.
Just try things out. Especially when people throw you a bone, or when people throw you a line, just grab it. Mm. Just see what happens.
Awesome. So on that positive note, thank you so much, Tatyana, for your time.
Thank you, Raisa. I really appreciate you having me on.
Awesome.